Imagine a world where every round is a long rush and every spawn is a long spawn. Imagine a world where your long rushes look like this. Could it be ELO Hell? No. It's Faceit level 10. Hey, it's Vu, and SpiderXYZ here submitted me possibly the most ridiculous game I've ever seen in my life, at least submitted to the ELO Hell series so far, from a Faceit level 10, and in fact a high Faceit level 10 game. He said he knows he's not in ELO Hell, however he's been struggling recently and he thinks maybe his aim is the issue or something else, and I thought this would be a good idea to go over what long control is really supposed to look like and figure out how we got to that point that I showed in the intro. What went wrong? Well, there's a few things that his team does right here. First off, they know that long control is very important. They stress long control quite often whenever they can. They throw tons of flashes at long when they go there, and they throw bodies at long when they go there. You definitely need a lot of players running out to make sure you're getting the trade kills. The things they do wrong is pretty much everything else. And let's take a look at the reasoning behind that, because they have here 4 B spawns and an A spawn. And the one thing to realize is you can kind of get away with going long with some bad spawns. This is stretching it to a ridiculous degree, but the one thing you absolutely always need is the best long A spawn. So not this one, which should be about the 3rd best long A spawn, but the peak long A spawn, because the front long A spawn will beat every spawn to the corner except for the very best CT spawn. And with that happening, you can also have the timing to get a shot off, or at least see the molly coming. If your opponents are lazy with their molly, you're going to get a shot off. If they're quick with the molly, you'll just see it coming, but you'll get some info and you can get out at the very least, whereas everybody else is likely going to get trapped behind that molly. So without either of those things, heavy A spawns or the best spawn, don't go long. Just don't do it. Don't do it. And they're going to be going long here, and it's not going to go all too well. You can see one player gets isolated off by the molly. He could have fallen back, but he was kind of in front of it, or like kind of on the side of it, and instead he's going to get killed, and they will go back and make their way over to Cat, and this is what's supposed to happen. Long doesn't go that well. You don't have a smoke for the molly. You made an effort. You found out they were hard contesting long, and then you go back and take Cat, because usually if they're hard contesting long, they're not going to have a lot of Cat presence. So it seems like this is as good a time as any to give you a bit of an intermission and show you what a long take should look like. Now, of course, again, this could have better coordination than you can expect in a pug, but you can see the general rules. The first player throws the flash off the doors, gets out as quickly as possible, and gets to blue bin. The second player throws some flashes over, and he makes sure that he's spamming that smoke. Then he goes to blue bin and boosts up the player at blue bin. Not really necessary, could go a different route, but that's just the general idea. Once he's moved over, the third player is also spamming that smoke, and the offer is posted on middle, then makes his way over and jumps in a pit, while a 5th player who threw the corner smoke goes and holds map control. Now, to understand for a second, this is thrown really before that kind of skybox smoke came into the meta, so perhaps they just didn't really have it in their repertoire at that point, but maybe they decided not to throw it because it does shave a 1/4 of a second off of your first player's spawn time. Again, to reiterate, this is just one style of long take. This is basically the one good spawn long take because they had 2 or 3 decent spawns, but they had to drop guns over and it delayed them slightly. There's plenty of ways to do it, but this is the general idea. Now, when it comes to takes or executes in pugs, you're never going to have real coordination. You're not really going to know what your teammates are going to do. You're kind of flying by the seat of your pants. However, you can do your role well, and you can try to compensate for your teammates and go from there. As long as you do your role well, you can feel comfortable that you did your job. Essentially, you made it easier for your team to win than you made it harder. And with this type of spawn, this is actually one of the few rounds they go long A with the correct spawns. 2 players forward, you can go with 1 player forward as well. There's different styles of long take. I'll get into that a little bit later, but with this style of long take, 2 players can try and force their way out. Usually you have 1 go blue bin, and you have players at the back, usually a 3rd spawn, so it would be Splat, might be throwing a smoke for the corner, player, but because he's so far back, if you had a third forward spawn, he could throw it. Usually you'd need one of these front two spawns to be throwing a on-the-fly corner smoke, which you can bounce off of the skybox to get to the corner. It's going to be a little bit late as compared to a smoke thrown from a third player. However, it'll be easy to do, and certainly in pugs, you should be trying to do it if you can. Now, Spider here is going to be on the fourth spawn. And typically you want one of the earlier spawns to throw deep flashes because deep flashes will catch your opponents as they come out. The later spawns can throw more shallow flashes, and the third spawn can often be the guy that smokes out this molly. However, because he's so late after throwing those two flashes, usually you only have one of these two players throwing flashes in this spot, or stopping to throw flashes at least, and you can actually throw them from a little bit further forward near the car instead. But because he's so late, smoking off this molly kind of just hurts himself. It would be easier to just wait it out for half a second because it's just about to dissipate anyways. But after that, you need to be spamming this smoke. The third, fourth player's job is usually to spam this smoke to create some distance or some space for the players that are already out to survive. If they haven't died, the only possible explanations are the CTs fell back or the CTs are going to contest around that smoke. That's why that smoke is so important. And the CTs threw it, by the way. That's why that smoke is so important. So, as the third player, you can spot up, you can just spam that smoke and make sure anyone trying to contest is going to get destroyed. Of course, things do go fairly well, but could have gone a little bit different. And the molly car is great, but jumping in a pit is usually not something you want to do with a rifle, and you definitely don't want to play it this aggressively if you do. Typically, you'd want this opper who is chained to T-spawn, as are many pug oppers. You want him to be going into pit, and you want to go back around and take cat control. If your opponents fall back off of long, they are stuck on plat, and they're going to have to contest cat. Cat is an angle that, if taken with, good utility, and if you kind of play it as if your opponents are definitely there, you simply cannot hold on to cat. So going back from long control, taking cat, well, if you have cat and long, they can't hold A, round over, easy as it gets. Unfortunately, forcing the long fights is one of the few ways back into the round for the CTs, and that's exactly what they did there. Don't do that. So round number 7, and they literally, by the way, go long 11 of 15 rounds, I believe, this half. Again, they don't have the best spawn. Again, Spider's going to be fourth here, and he's actually throwing flashes at the exact same time as a teammate. They're going to get mollied back because they didn't have the best spawn, and they're going to slow down. But if you're going to slow down, you need to slow all the way down. Allow your opponents to reset and consider. Make one of them rotate off, because if you're playing two players committed long for, a large portion of the round, you're weak throughout the map. Your cat control is going to be quite weak. Your mid to B rotates are going to be very poor. They won't, or they shouldn't, have two players staying long too long. However, there's no reason for them to not have two players staying long, because there's noise being continued to be made, there's pressure being put, and then they're going to swing out. They threw 7 flashes in this round. And not a single one blinded these players anywhere near the time they were actually coming out. This is a huge issue. Your flashes need to be timed to catch these guys as they're coming out. As you're fighting or as you're about to fight, running out long into two players posted up on you with no utility, this is lemmings. This is lambs to the slaughter. It's never going to work. So if we skip ahead a few rounds, round number 10, and Spider's finally going to have a decent spawn, but he doesn't buy full utility here for some reason. The second spawn is a player who's going to be really well done by throwing deep flashes early to try and blind CTs as they're running up, and a flash off the door maybe, but that would usually be the first player. Oftentimes the second player smokes the molly. However, in this case, because his teammates aren't being very helpful, smoking corner would be pretty solid. Either way, it depends on how you feel about it. If you think the third player will smoke the molly, which he really should, then you can smoke corner. If you don't, then I guess you can go without a long corner smoke, but you certainly need as many flashes as physically possible. And as he makes his way over, he's just going to run out wide to the right. This is exactly why you need a smoke corner. He gets the initial kill, but it's just an easy trade for that opper with really no committal. Although Calf actually gets 2 kills back, those were kills that he shouldn't be getting, and the players on CT side had the ability to get away. They just took the fight and he railed them. The other thing to mention is that this play he made out to the right is actually a pretty strong long A rush that a lot of teams like doing at the pro level. Mouse Sports really love it. I've seen Astralis do it a few times, where you have that first player go hard to the right. But what you need with that is chained flashes, lots of them. You need a smoke corner, and the first player needs to be throwing a flash for himself as well. Going wide to the right is okay, but without a smoke corner, the only option is to go blue bin, and really, without a smoke corner, the only option is to not go long. But you can certainly send one blue bin. Going wide to the right here it's not going to work, unfortunately. You need to have some level of trust in your team to throw smokes and to throw a ton of flashes. And if you have that level of trust, if you've established that with your team, then you can try that, certainly. But in this type of situation, wouldn't be doing that personally. I'd be doing a little bit more passive play. And really, unfortunately for Spider, he's just not being put in any position to ever get kills. He is actually doing the right thing. You know, I watched his whole game here. Mechanically, he's quite good. That's what you expect from a Faceit 10. He's got some understanding of the game, and he's not afraid to run out. That is actually something really important that a lot of people miss out on. They're afraid to run out first. They're afraid to die. It's okay to die when you create space for your team. Unfortunately, he's dying here, and his team is just not doing anything that can possibly work off of it. It's not really his fault. It really isn't. It's his whole team's fault. So finally, Spider's going to have the front long spawn, and he's going to take it. And without a smoke corner, again, he could be throwing that himself. He didn't buy up utility again because he thinks he's just running out to his death, which the way he does it, he really is, but he could be changing that. And he's just going to go wide to the right here. You need a smoke corner to be doing that again. Just go blue bin. Just go blue bin. All his opponents are doing, they're not even doing anything particularly clever here. They're having the front 2 players go out, the best spawn mollies, the second spawn stays turned, the third spawn waits and then flashes behind for them to swing out. If you ever play a long take without a corner smoke, that play will dominate you. This is the play that you should all be running on your CT sides if you can convince your teammates to do it. You have the first 2 spawns go, the very best spawn mollies, the third spawn throws flashes on a slight delay. You don't throw them right away, you throw them after the T's could be out to try and catch them in the middle of the open, grab kills and cross the pit, and you go from there. They're not doing anything clever, it's just that you need a corner smoke to deal with that, and you need good flashes, and you need good routing. And you need to stop going long with B spawns. They know you're going long every round, so they're just stacking it. There needs to be some threat that you could go somewhere else. This is really a clinic of how not to take long. And unfortunately, this is a very high rank for that to be happening in. And this is a very tough lesson for Spider XYZ here. But that's reality. So thanks for watching, and I hope this helped. If you enjoyed the content, hit that subscribe button, give it a thumbs up, go to the Patreon. You can support the Patreon if you want. You can get a demo review where I really go over all of your mistakes and try and do it in a, in a less jokey